Hey everyone, hope you're having a good week. So we're back here again. So today I just want to share the verses we've done this past week with youth and young adults, and I'm going to read from 2 Peter 1, 4-6. And this is what it says. Though these, let me start again. Though these he has granted to us, his precious and magnificent promises, so that by them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world on account of lust. Now for this very reason also, applying all diligence, in your faith supply moral excellence, and in your moral excellence knowledge, and in your knowledge self-control, and in your self-control perseverance, and in your perseverance godliness. And so as we see here, God, verse 4, God's promise his precious, magnificent promises, so that we may be partakers of his divine nature. We know the Spirit comes in us. God slowly sanctifies us. We have that hope of his eternal life with him and all of who God is, and that he's promised us that. We can have that, right? And because of that, we escaped the corruption of the world on account of lust. And we know with lust, that's everywhere, right? We know in Romans, Paul talks about how God has made it known to all mankind that there is a God, that he is here by his divine nature, his invisible attributes, right? We know through this look at the planet, his nature, the solar system, looking at our bodies, our intelligence, that there's a divine God behind this. But man has turned his back on God and gone to the idols. And God has allowed them to continue in their sins, right? And he's opened the door to their sexual sins and into homosexuality. And so here we see lust. We know lust is in the world. Everything is just, that's where the focus is, right? TVs, movies, music, advertisement, men and women thoughts, society, right? So we see how corrupt where sin leads us. And God has taken us from that, right? And his promises, and we see that. But this, verse 5 and 6, this is our part. This is the things that we have to do. For this very reason also, applying all diligence, right? So our attention, our focus, and in your faith, supply moral excellence, right? Doing something right, avoiding what's wrong. So we know we're diligent in this, in our faith, and our moral excellence, knowing right from wrong. And in your moral excellence, knowledge, right? Understanding God, understanding right and wrong, understanding what God has shown us as sin, understanding who God is, and all that. And within your knowledge, self-control. We can hold back, right? We can stop doing our desires or what we're tempted to do, and we can say, no, I can't allow my own sin to run away with that and follow into to be a slave to sin again. And we do that, in your self-control, we'll get perseverance, right? Doing something despite it being difficult. We know we're tempted, right? There's going to be times where it's going to be very hard. We're being tempted at a spot where we feel it's being so difficult in saying no to that temptation, or being maybe forced into it by pressure from other people. Or if we do that and avoid it, even if it's hard, it wouldn't be. The next thing is godliness, is being sanctified, being more like God. And so for us, we gotta take those steps. We have to really understand and focus on our faith, right? Know right from wrong, understand it, have self-control, and then perseverance through that, right? Pushing against what's wrong. And only God can help us through this, right? So we need to have that close walk with God, understanding and allowing God to work through our lives. And again, if we're not living for God, we're not going to do this. So if we can, if we understand God, love God, and do this because we know who God is, what he has for us, and the sanctification, and just have that close relationship, have that yearning to be with him, we can. But tonight, for young adults and youth, I focus on self-control, because that's the kind of hard thing and that covers all the sins, right? We have to control our desires, our temptations for any sin. And we know, self-control is the ability to regulate one's emotions, thoughts, and behavior in the face of temptations and impulses. And so self-control applies to anything that we're tempted to do, anything that we want to run to without us thinking about it or controlling it. And that could be anything, right? Could be in our pride, losing self-control, right? having pride, having jealousy, greed, lust, hatred, division, how we say things, lying, all these sins that we see. We have to have control over everything, all of it. And when we do that, when we open the gate, if we don't have control over one thing, it's going to flood open to the other sins, and we're not going to have control over everything else. So we need to have, that diligence in understanding of God, and push back on these things and not allow these things to control us anymore, because God's freed us from that. And so, what I challenge the youth and young adults, and I think we all need to do this, what are some of the things we need to give up that we lose control over? And it could be, what we watch on TV. If we're watching a show with a lot of swearing in it, we're going to start swearing. If there is, TV shows or movies, any kind of media where we can lust, we're going to lose that control. We're going to start lusting, and we're going to fall to that prey. And people we hang out with, it's so important. Who are we allowing to be in a part of our life, to be that voice to us? Maybe going to parties. It's not even just the kids. I see adults who, go on vacation and they post pictures and they're all having alcohol. I'm not saying it's a sin to drink, one drink, but if that's what we do when we get together as Christians, the focus is alcohol and having a good time, and we know what alcohol does, and there's other sins that come with that, and if we go to places to indulge in these things, or for friends, even Christian friends, if we're hanging out at a bonfire or at someone's house, and we can say, hey, no, this isn't godly. This isn't something that would bring glory to God. Our talk is not holy. So even if it's friends that just sit and gossip or talk about things they shouldn't talk about, tearing down people, talking about the opposite sex in a rude way, or even talking about their spouses negatively, we got to pull away from that. We got to have self-control and say, no, I can't be doing this thing, because I'm going to be tempted, and because we're friends, and then we care about these people, but they're going to start influencing our lives, and so we need to do some things that help us from being tempted, and we may lose friends. We may stop going places. We may stop watching things, listening to music that doesn't have a good message. Internet, social media, even being on Facebook and wasting time and being influenced by the posts and what people say, and if it's changing our mindset and taking us away from God, we got to get rid of it. We got to keep Christ first in our heart, and it's something we really got to have that control and be honest and open about, and really push against the world which we've been freed from because of Christ. And we got to have that diligence, that perseverance, and that goal to be more like God, to keep, allow God to sanctify us, allow God to change us, and not to give in to our desires. Because unfortunately, I see so many adults that are so willing to convince themselves that the sin they're in or the sin they've done is okay, that God's okay with it. He's not. And it's just taking them down a path where it's scary, and I fear for them. So for us, do we have that self-control in our life? And the only way we can have that self-control is if we allow Christ in our hearts and allow Him to transform us, and for us to be strong in our faith, to grow the knowledge, to understand right and wrong, to be honest with ourselves. And that's a key thing, I think, for all of us, to know ourselves, to be honest with ourselves, to be willing to look at our faults and our insecurities and allow God to change them and get the help we need for that. So I just want to challenge everybody just to look what's in our life, what we're loving, what we are allowing in our lives that tempt us and that we fail at, and what are some things that we shouldn't even have, the messages or the media that it isn't godly, it's not glorifying at all. And so what we need to maybe clean our house up and make sure that we are allowing God to work in us and to change us, and we need to put that up. We need to put the effort in and say, no, God, because of what you've done for me, your love for me, His grace is sufficient. That act alone of Christ coming and dying and paying the penalty for our sins, and be able to have that relationship being restored to God, that's enough. That's all he needed to do, but He's given us more. But if we understand that price and that payment, we will make sure we have that self-control because of that. If we understand what's been done for us, we will give to Him everything that He asks. And so we need each other. We need to be praying for each other. We need one another to speak words of wisdom to each other, and to be honest with somebody, and just to get out of our heads sometimes, and listen to somebody else who can give us the godly advice. And also just to spend that time with God. We need to spend time in prayer and time in silence to hear Him, and to allow Him to lead us. So, that's what I wanted to say. And so, hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and we'll talk to you next week.